Today was day one of Barcelona pre-season testing, and I'll run through what I saw in just a moment. Beautiful day in Barcelona, great conditions. I'm actually recording this video in the foyer of the Hotel Barcelona 1882, and my aim is to do it in one take, and we'll see how we go. So let's have a look at how the day started for me. I'll run through on my computer here what I actually saw. I got out there, by the way, I was up since 3 a.m. because couldn't sleep with jet lag, so I thought I'd head out to the track early, get out about 6:45, and I knew at 8 o'clock there'd be a launch of the Haas car with the two drivers. I got down there a little bit late. I managed to get one pic of Roman and Kevin at the back of the car here, and then I moved next door where the guys from Alpha were debuting their car, and they had the car under wraps, obviously, as you can see here, and the two drivers came out. But first we had Tatiana Calderon, Robert Kubica, the other reserve driver, followed out, and I do like their new race suit too. Sparko got to be pretty happy with this coverage they have here. And then came the two drivers with Kimi looking magnificent. I noticed this is a new sponsor up here on the hat, and Antonio Giovinazzi in the stock standard racing driver beard, which a good number of them tend to have and enjoy. And then it was the unveiling of the car with the black material being pulled back, and that revealed what is a pretty snazzy design, I think you'd agree. And this is the side-on shot here in just a second, but the drivers all stood there with Tatiana, the only one with their arms crossed. And you'll see in a second here, all the drivers have their names on their legs of their strides. And as you can see here, Tatiana has the least amount of red because her name is longer and she is shorter. So who's got the most? Probably Robert down the bottom here. Joined by two fellas from the team. And then we, just once again, a close-up here. I noticed the race suit is ribbed for extra pleasure. But it's on the back only, I think. The front's all smooth. I did notice that Robert Kubica once again had quite a following in the grandstands, and he's only a reserve driver. He has great presence, particularly amongst the Polish community. Here's Tatiana having a laugh. She's wearing her Richard Mille watch. She's got one now. She's part of the team. And then the car was left for us to shoot, excuse me, on its own there. And did you note that, in fact I only picked this up late last year, this is actually some sort of medieval creature, I gather a dragon, eating a human being, and that's the Alpha logo. Curious one, huh? I thought I'd go back into the paddock at that stage, and then I noticed Charles Leclerc coming out of one of the garages, and I thought, oh well, I'll follow him. I didn't realise that up on the track there was a huge gathering of drivers. So he and Pierre walked down the paddock, down the pit lane, heading out there with all the other 18 odd drivers, and then at one stage they realised they were running a little bit late, so they had to get a move on, and off they sprinted down pit lane, much to the light of the photographers behind me, all running backwards, which is a little bit dangerous, but we all kept our feet, thankfully. Then they all headed out to the grid and they formed this line across the track. Now over here I'm pretty sure that's a Netflix cameraman. There's a few photographers around here, but pretty much no other photographers were allowed. What I did notice, and somebody pointed out to me too a number of times on my Instagram post, was Daniel Ricciardo's helmet is purple this year. And then I took another shot here and just happened to notice while I was shooting it, which is odd because sometimes I don't notice this stuff until I get back and edit, that Max and Esteban were having a quick chat and a shake of the hands. And of course you know that they had that run-in 2 years ago in Brazil, but they're all good mates and they've been karting together for a long time, so that's sort of stuff that happens in the heat of the moment. But yeah, really pretty looking shot, this one, and I quite like these fellas over here all in their white suits. Would have been nice if Lewis and Valtteri had also joined them, but they were stuck in the middle. As you can see, big lettering on the legs here of the AlphaTauri, and I only realised today that AlphaTauri is a clothing brand, and really for someone like me who's into marketing, I would have thought that the AlphaTauri brand should have been a little bit better known. I thought it was a soft drink, quite frankly. So maybe I'm under the wrong impression. Perhaps I'm the only one, but yeah, I would have thought they perhaps need to do a little bit more marketing on that side of things to let people know that it is indeed a clothing brand, high-end clothing brand. A shot of the drivers from the front and one from the back, and I'm pretty sure it's only these two boys here from McLaren and these two fellas from Renault who have their numbers on their backs, much like football players. Max has got a new cap, I see here, and I didn't see his trainer today, but I believe he was with him. But it was a busy day in the paddock, much busier than normal on a testing day, and it was a huge media contingent. In fact, it was chock-a-block up in the media centre. People were waiting. I think a lot of these people waited for many hours, if not the whole day, for a glimpse of Lewis coming up the stairs, and maybe Valtteri as well, but I kind of think that their emphasis would have been on Lewis. And then out the front of the Renault garage, they were waiting for Daniel Ricciardo, and this particular lady here was quite proud of her little cutout and was very pleased to show it to me. God bless her. What else? First session, the morning session, which started at 9 a.m, I headed up to the grandstand here and took a couple of pics, because there's very few people out the back here in this stand, and quite frankly there would have been no more than 200 in this stand watching, but it's a good spot. But just lovely colours today in that light, and I'm using the 1DX Mark III. It's a brand new camera, and my gosh, it's beautiful. I really loved the images I got, and I guess the light certainly helped. It's clean light. It's a great place, Barcelona. A little bit cool today, you certainly felt it. I love the look of the AlphaTauri, the old Toro Rosso. Here's Carlos Sainz. He was in the car the whole day, heading around the track. And as you can see down here, they put the green paint on here, which helps work out where the air flows over the car. This was my first look at Esteban Ocon in the car, and it is a really beautiful finish that they've got on this Renault. And I quite love the new pink. I think they've changed it a little bit with Sergio Perez in the Force India Racing Point, whatever it's called, another back shot. And once again, they've got these little things up here which have cameras in them, and that allows the team to look at the wear and tear on the tyres from the garage. I then headed up into the wooded section, so I could get some shots of cars. Now this is a slow pan shot, so some of these are at about 20th of a second. I had a crack at a few 1/8 of a second, but you've got to be right up there with the very best to nail them. But really lovely shots where you get the blur of the trees in the foreground, the car sharp in the background, and I had a bit of a play with that. A couple of new liveries on the garages. This is the Racing Point garage with big numbers here, which weren't there last year. And that's actually a screen that plays video, and for some reason, when I take a photo of it, you don't see the video. But trust me, there was a big picture of one of the drivers on there at the moment I pressed the shutter. I thought this was actually a new Mercedes-Benz hospitality suite, but somebody suggested it might actually be an old one, perhaps used in DTM. And for those of you in Germany, you might be able to confirm that for us. George Russell, lovely smiley George, and it was in nice lights. I was pretty happy with this. And just trailing behind him, you can probably see him coming down the stairs here, is this lad, Lando Norris. And I got a fat tongue from Lando with a jovial smile from the youngster. He is quite the lad. Kimi, I found him, and he had a little bit of time for this young fan. And often, if you're a young fan and you're happy to walk and talk with him, he'll give you quite a bit of time. So it's always nice to see when the drivers do that. Then I found Roman Grosjean explaining to some guests of the Haas team how a steering wheel works on an F1 car. He too has his very expensive Richard Mille watch on there. And then I found Tatiana Calderon, and I asked her whether she'd be happy for me to take a shot of her eye. Now the eye itself here is only about 2 centimetres away from the lens, and that is the actual lens that you see there. But if I zoom in on that, you can see around her there's a reflection of what's in the paddock. So it's quite a marvellous lens. That's the Laowa 24mm probe lens, and it's called a probe lens because it is a long, quite frankly, it looks like a probe. And as I mentioned before, I'm doing this in the foyer of a hotel, and that's why you can hear some noise in the background. I found Andrea Ferrari later in the day, handling some fruit and taking it over to Charles Leclerc. Now, he actually drove today. It was actually Seb's turn to drive, but there was a drama with Seb. He wasn't feeling too well, so they put Charles in the car and he drove for the whole day. This is Pierre Gasly's mum. She was there along with his dad, Jean-Jacques. This is Pascal in the paddock. And then in the afternoon, I went out to the last 4 or 5 turns and just hung around there. Charles Leclerc's car, I think that's a new number, is it not? I'm pretty sure it is. Some added colour here with Max Verstappen with a slow shutter speed shot, rear shot of Max. And this is interesting here. They're doing some, I'm not sure what testing they do, but whatever data gets measured by that gets fed back and is used somehow on the back of the Williams car, which once again I quite like the paintwork on that. Carlos from the back. And then we had the gorgeous light for about the last 35 minutes of the day. Sun gets low in the sky. We shoot the reflection off the gravel here. I've actually bumped up in the camera a little bit the white balance. So if you know much about cameras, that's probably at about 8,000. But it was still pretty orange when I was there. So Lewis Hamilton coming around here, a wider shot which shows the sun just about going behind that hill behind us, Charles Leclerc. Now if you have a look here, his wheel is way off the ground. He's given that a fair whack. Daniel Ricciardo here, and there's his purple helmet. I hope you're enjoying what these other people are shouting around in the background, because I'm having to battle with them. And have a look at this. This is almost looks like a fighter pilot in a car, doesn't it? So that's lovely lighting coming from this side and bouncing off the top. And the final shot from that afternoon session of Carlos Sainz in golden light. So I then went down to the paddock, and actually I went upstairs and shot down on Max Verstappen being interviewed. And my final shot of the day was Max Verstappen in amongst a whole lot of media being interviewed, and just one TV light on his face making him stand out from the rest of the crowd. Well, I didn't get through it in one take. It was about 5 edits, I think, mainly because of noise in the background. But thank you for hanging around to the end. Remember, you can see all of my images at prostarpics.com. Now, if you've liked this video, please like the video. Press the like button and then subscribe if you haven't done that. And so you don't miss out on any future videos, hit the bell button. I was delighted today to speak to a number of people who had actually followed me on YouTube, where you're watching this right now, so thank you for that. And remember, my blogs and podcasts are at kimillman.com, and for my best pictures live from the track and all during the week, head to Instagram at Kim Illman. Thanks for watching, and stay passionate.